Captain Sarah Chun watched the tactical display with growing dread. Red dots representing enemy ships filled the holographic projection like angry wasps. The Terran defense fleet had fought bravely for 3 days, but now only her ship remained. The UES Defiance, humanity's last heavy cruiser, shuddered under another barrage of plasma fire. Emergency klaxons wailed throughout the corridors as damage reports flooded in from every section. The bridge crew worked frantically at their stations, faces pale with exhaustion and fear. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Lieutenant Martinez from the damage control station. "Emergency bulkheads are holding, but barely." Sarah gripped the command chair's armrests until her knuckles turned white. Through the main view screen, she could see the sleek alien vessels of the Zephyrian hegemony closing in for the kill. Their ships moved like predatory fish through space, all curves and deadly grace. Each vessel was larger than her cruiser, armed with weapons that could slice through human armor like paper. "Captain, we're receiving another surrender demand," announced Communications Officer Park, his voice barely steady. "Ignore it," Sarah replied without hesitation. The Zephyrians had made their intentions clear 3 months ago when they arrived at the edge of human space. They demanded complete submission or total extinction. No negotiation. No compromise. Humanity had chosen to fight. The war had been brutal and one-sided from the beginning. Human technology, once considered advanced, proved laughably primitive against Zephyrian energy weapons and shielding. Earth's finest warships had been swept aside like toys. Colony after colony fell silent as the alien fleet advanced toward the human homeworld. "Ma'am, we're down to 18% power," reported Chief Engineer Okafor through the comm system. His usually calm voice carried hints of desperation. "The fusion reactors are running beyond redline. I can't guarantee how much longer we can maintain basic systems." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of Earth behind them. 15 billion souls depended on this last desperate stand. The evacuation fleets had launched 2 days ago, carrying as many civilians as possible toward the outer colonies. But most of humanity remained on their birth world, unable to escape in time. "Weapon status?" she asked. "Forward missile banks are empty," replied Weapons Officer Thompson. "We have 6 torpedoes left in the rear tubes, and maybe 30 seconds of rail gun ammunition." The Defiance had been built as a symbol of human engineering prowess. 300 meters of titanium steel composite armor wrapped around the most advanced weapons systems humanity could produce. Her crew of 800 represented the best and brightest of the Terran Navy. But against the Zephyrian fleet, they might as well have been throwing rocks. Another impact rocked the ship. This time, the lights flickered and several consoles sparked. The artificial gravity generators struggled to compensate, causing everyone to stumble slightly. "Direct hit to the port engine assembly," Martinez called out. "We're losing maneuverability." Through the view screen, Sarah could see the enemy formation spreading out to surround them. The Zephyrians were taking their time now, savoring their victory. Their flagship, a massive dreadnought twice the size of any human vessel, hung back like a patient executioner. "Captain," Park said quietly, "I'm picking up something strange on the deep space sensors." "What kind of strange?" Sarah asked, though she kept her eyes on the approaching enemy ships. "There's a massive energy signature coming from the outer system. It's big, really big, but it's been dormant until now." Sarah frowned. Earth's outer system had been thoroughly mapped and mined for centuries. There shouldn't be anything out there capable of generating significant energy readings. "Show me." Park transferred the sensor data to the main screen. Among the scattered asteroids and ice chunks beyond Pluto's orbit, a single object glowed with increasing brightness. The readings were off the charts, suggesting something the size of a small moon generating power levels that dwarfed anything in human technology. "What is that thing?" whispered Navigator Chun. Before anyone could answer, the lead Zephyrian cruiser opened fire again. The plasma beam struck the Defiance's weakened shields and punched through to the hull beneath. Atmosphere vented into space as another section of the ship died. "That's it," Sarah decided. "All hands, prepare for ramming speed. We're going to take as many of these bastards with us as we can." The bridge crew exchanged grim looks, but began preparing for their final charge. The Defiance might die, but she would die fighting. "Ma'am." Park interrupted, excitement creeping into his voice. That object in the outer system. It's moving. And it's accelerating toward us. Fast. Sarah looked back at the sensor display. The mysterious object had indeed begun moving, and its energy output was climbing exponentially. Whatever it was, it would reach Earth's orbital zone in less than an hour. Could it be a Zephyrian ship? Thompson asked. Negative, Park replied, studying his readings more carefully. The energy signature is completely different from their technology. This is something else entirely. The Zephyrian fleet had noticed the anomaly too. Sarah could see their formation beginning to shift, some ships turning toward the approaching object with obvious concern. Their confident advance faltered as they tried to identify this new factor. Captain, incoming transmission from the Zephyrian flagship, Park announced. Put it through. The view screen flickered, and the angular features of a Zephyrian admiral appeared. His reptilian face showed the typical arrogance of his species, but Sarah caught a hint of uncertainty in his large, dark eyes. Human vessel. The admiral spoke in heavily accented English. Explain the nature of the approaching object. What weapon have you deployed against us? Sarah almost laughed. Admiral, I have no idea what that thing is. But I hope it kills every last one of you. The alien's face darkened with anger. Your species' deception will not save you. We will destroy this new threat and complete your extermination. The transmission ended, and Sarah watched as half the Zephyrian fleet broke off to intercept the mysterious object. Their remaining ships maintained position around the Defiance, but their attention was clearly divided. Ma'am, I'm getting more detailed scans of the object now, Park reported. It's artificial. Definitely a constructed vessel of some kind. The design is unlike anything in our databases. The unknown ship continued its rapid approach, its energy signature now visible as a brilliant star against the black of space. As it drew closer, Park's sensors began to resolve more details. Jesus Christ, he whispered. Captain, that thing is huge. I mean, impossibly huge. It's over 50 kilometers long. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. A 50-kilometer warship was beyond anything humanity had ever imagined building. The largest human vessels barely reached 2 kilometers in length. Even the Zephyrian dreadnoughts were only 5 kilometers from bow to stern. What kind of civilization could build something like that? Martinez wondered aloud. As if responding to his question, the massive ship suddenly decelerated from its incredible speed to a relative stop in less than 30 seconds. The physics-defying maneuver should have turned any crew aboard into paste, yet the vessel showed no signs of structural damage. The Zephyrian intercept force opened fire as soon as they came within range. Dozens of plasma beams and energy torpedoes struck the giant ship's hull. The weapons that had effortlessly destroyed human warships simply vanished against some kind of energy barrier surrounding the newcomer. Then, the unknown vessel returned fire. A single beam of brilliant blue energy lanced out from its forward section. The beam struck the lead Zephyrian dreadnought and simply erased it from existence. No explosion, no debris field. One moment the ship was there, the next it was gone. The remaining Zephyrian ships scattered in panic, but the massive vessel's weapons tracked them with impossible precision. One by one, the alien ships vanished under the blue beams. In less than 5 minutes, the entire intercept force had been eliminated. On the bridge of the Defiance, the crew watched in stunned silence. The ship that had just destroyed a dozen Zephyrian warships without effort was now turning toward Earth. Its intentions remained completely unknown. Ma'am, Park said in a shaky voice, we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel. It's on human communication frequencies. Sarah's blood ran cold. How could an alien ship know their frequencies? Put it through. The view screen shimmered, and a new figure appeared. Sarah had to grip her chair to keep from falling over. The being on the screen looked human. Not alien human, not humanoid. Completely, unmistakably human. The figure was an elderly man with silver hair and kind eyes. He wore a uniform that looked vaguely military, but followed no design Sarah recognized. Behind him, she could glimpse a vast bridge with control stations operated by more humans. This is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Terran sovereignty ship Eternal Vigilance, the man said with a warm smile. I apologize for our late arrival, Captain Chun. We've been asleep for quite some time. Sarah's mind reeled. The Terran sovereignty had been a government from humanity's distant past, thousands of years before the current United Earth Federation. And how did this man know her name? Admiral, she managed to say. With respect, sir, the Terran sovereignty hasn't existed for over 3,000 years. Webb's smile turned sad. Time has little meaning when you're sleeping between the stars, Captain. We've been waiting for humanity to need us again. It seems that time has come. The remaining Zephyrian ships around the Defiance were now retreating at maximum speed, but the Eternal Vigilance made no move to pursue them. Instead, the massive ship positioned itself between Earth and the fleeing aliens. Admiral Webb, Sarah said, her voice filled with hope for the first time in months. Can you really stop them? The old man's expression grew grim. The Zephyrians are but one threat among many, Captain. We've detected 17 other hostile civilizations moving toward human space. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and humanity's expansion has attracted unwanted attention. Sarah felt her heart sink again. If there were 17 more threats like the Zephyrians, even this massive ship couldn't protect humanity. Webb seemed to sense her thoughts. But that's why we're here, Captain Chun. The Eternal Vigilance is not alone. We are the first of 7 sovereignty vessels awakening from our long sleep. Each was built with one purpose: to ensure humanity's survival no matter the cost. On the tactical display, Sarah could see more energy signatures appearing at the edge of the solar system. Massive shapes were emerging from what had appeared to be empty space, their presence hidden by technology beyond current human understanding. Who are you? Sarah asked. How do you exist? Webb's image flickered slightly as interference disrupted the signal. We are what humanity became during the Dark Years, Captain. When the first great threat nearly destroyed our species, we built these ships and their crews to sleep through the centuries, waiting for the time when humanity would need us again. The Defiance's sensors were now detecting energy readings throughout the solar system as more ancient ships revealed themselves. Each one was massive, though none quite matched the size of the Eternal Vigilance. Your ship has fought bravely, Webb continued. But now you must stand down and let us handle the threats to our species. Return to Earth and tell them that the sovereignty has returned. Sarah looked around her damaged bridge at her exhausted crew. They had been prepared to die for humanity, but now they might actually live to see their homeworld saved. Understood, Admiral, she replied. But what happens now? What happens to the United Earth Federation? Webb's expression grew thoughtful. Humanity has grown and changed much since our time. We have no desire to rule or control. We are guardians, nothing more. Your government will continue as it always has. We will simply ensure it has the chance to do so. The transmission began to fade as the Eternal Vigilance moved away from Earth orbit. Rest well, Captain Chun. The war is far from over, but humanity will endure. We have made certain of that. The screen went dark, leaving the crew of the Defiance alone with their thoughts. Around them, space filled with the massive forms of awakening sovereignty ships, each one a testament to human engineering from an age long forgotten. Sarah slumped back in her command chair, exhaustion finally catching up with her. They had expected to die as the last defenders of Earth. Instead, they had witnessed the return of humanity's ancient guardians. The Zephyrian fleet was already retreating toward the edge of the solar system, their confidence shattered by the appearance of ships that could destroy them effortlessly. But Webb's words echoed in her mind. 17 other hostile civilizations were heading for human space. The real war was just beginning, and humanity would need every advantage to survive what was coming. As the Defiance limped toward Earth for repairs, Sarah couldn't help but wonder what other secrets humanity's past might hold. The ancient sovereignty had clearly possessed technology far beyond anything humans had achieved since. How had such advanced knowledge been lost? And why had these guardian ships been built in the first place? The answers to those questions would have to wait. For now, it was enough that humanity had survived another day. The ancient warships were awakening, and, with them, hope for the future of the human race. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance, watching Earth grow larger on the main view screen. The blue-green world looked much the same as it had 3,000 years ago, though orbital stations and defense platforms now surrounded it like a protective shell. Humanity had grown, but they had also become complacent. The bridge around him buzzed with quiet activity as his crew prepared for the coming conflict. These men and women had volunteered for an impossible mission, to sleep for millennia and awaken only when humanity faced extinction. They had given up their entire lives, their families, their very time period, to serve as guardians for a species that would forget they ever existed. Status report, Webb commanded. Commander Elena Vasquez, his first officer, approached with a datapad. Like all Sovereignty personnel, she wore the distinctive dark blue uniform with silver trim that had been standard during their era. Her face showed the calm determination that had been selected for in all Vigilance crew members. All 7 Sovereignty vessels are now fully operational, she reported. The Eternal Vigilance, Undying Resolve, Iron Will, Sacred Duty, Last Stand, Final Hope, and Endless Watch have completed awakening protocols. Total crew complement across all ships is 42,000. Webb nodded. 7 ships might not seem like much against the threats they faced, but each Sovereignty vessel represented the pinnacle of human technology from the Dark Age. They had been built when humanity's survival hung by a thread, when every resource had been poured into creating the ultimate weapons of war. What about the enemy forces? He asked. The Zephyrian fleet has withdrawn to the edge of the system, Vasquez replied. They're maintaining position, but haven't attempted another attack. Our long-range sensors have detected 17 other hostile fleets approaching from different vectors. The closest will arrive in 72 hours. Webb studied the tactical display that materialized before him. Red markers showed the approaching threats from across the galaxy. Each represented a civilization that viewed humanity as either a resource to be exploited or a pest to be eliminated. The galaxy was not kind to young species. Tell me about these 17 fleets, he said. Commander Torres, the intelligence officer, stepped forward. His cybernetic implants glowed softly as he accessed the ship's vast databases. The Sovereignty had learned long ago that biological limitations could be overcome through careful technological integration. Analysis is ongoing, sir, but we've identified several major threats, Torres began. The Krillian swarm consists of biomechanical ships that reproduce by consuming planetary matter. The Void Hunters are energy beings that feed on electromagnetic activity from living brains. The machine collective seeks to convert all organic life into digital consciousness under their control. Webb frowned. Each threat was different, requiring unique strategies and countermeasures. The ancient enemies that had nearly destroyed humanity during the First Dark Age had been more straightforward. They simply wanted to kill everything. These new threats were more complex and arguably more dangerous. What about the modern human fleet? He asked. Scattered and demoralized, Vasquez reported grimly. The Zephyrian assault destroyed 80% of their vessels. Survivors are regrouping at the outer colonies, but their technology is insufficient against any of the approaching threats. Webb walked to the vast windows that lined one side of the bridge. Outside, he could see the other Sovereignty ships moving into defensive positions around Earth. Each vessel was a monument to human ingenuity and determination, built during humanity's darkest hour when extinction seemed inevitable. The Eternal Vigilance itself stretched over 50 kilometers from bow to stern, but its size was not its greatest asset. The ship's quantum-enhanced armor could withstand direct stellar bombardment. Its weapons could crack planets or precisely target single molecules. Most importantly, its crew had been trained and enhanced to fight threats that ordinary humans couldn't even comprehend. Sir, Communications Officer Park announced, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. President Martinez is requesting permission to come aboard. Webb had expected this. The current human government would want answers, and they deserve them. Humanity had the right to know about their own history, even the parts that had been deliberately hidden. Grant permission, he replied. Have the president brought to conference room Alpha. Full security protocols. An hour later, Webb found himself sitting across from Maria Martinez, president of the United Earth Federation. She was younger than he had expected, probably in her 50s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Behind her stood 2 bodyguards and a small delegation of advisors. Admiral Webb. The president began without preamble. I'll be direct. My people are terrified and confused. Yesterday, we thought we were alone in the galaxy except for hostile aliens trying to kill us. Today, we discover that humanity has secret fleets of super-advanced warships hiding in our own solar system. I need explanations. Webb appreciated her directness. President Martinez, what I'm about to tell you has been classified at the highest levels for over 3,000 years. Your government's security clearance doesn't even acknowledge that this information exists. He gestured, and holographic displays filled the room, showing star charts and historical data that predated all known human records. Humanity is not a young species, President Martinez. We are old, very old, and this is not our first time facing extinction. The president leaned forward, her attention completely focused. What do you mean? Webb manipulated the holographic controls, and images of ancient human colonies appeared in the air above the table. Massive cities on distant worlds, space habitats that dwarfed anything modern humanity had built, fleets of ships that numbered in the millions. 4,000 years ago, humanity controlled nearly 1,000 star systems, Webb explained. We had a population of over 2 trillion souls spread across the galaxy. Our technology was advanced beyond anything you can imagine. We thought we were unstoppable. The images changed, showing scenes of destruction. Entire worlds burning, space battles on an incomprehensible scale, the systematic annihilation of human civilization. Then, the Devourers came, Webb continued quietly. An ancient machine intelligence that had already consumed hundreds of galaxies. They swept through human space like a plague, converting our worlds into raw materials for their ever-expanding fleet. Within 50 years, humanity was reduced to a few million survivors hiding in the deepest parts of space. President Martinez stared at the holographic devastation with growing horror. How did we survive? Barely, Webb replied. The remnants of humanity's greatest minds came together for one final project. They couldn't build ships fast enough or numerous enough to match the Devourers in direct combat. So they tried something else. They built 7 ships designed not for immediate victory, but for long-term survival. The holographic display showed the construction of the Sovereignty vessels. Massive shipyards hidden in asteroid fields, the best technology and weapons humanity could create, and, most importantly, crews selected and trained for a mission that would last millennia. Each ship was given a different role, Webb explained. Some were designed to hide and preserve human knowledge. Others were built to monitor galactic threats. The Eternal Vigilance and her sister ships were tasked with something more direct. We were to sleep until humanity needed us again, then awaken to defend our species against any threat. Sleep? One of the president's advisors asked. Webb nodded. Cryogenic suspension combined with consciousness transfer technology. Our bodies sleep while our minds exist in quantum storage, monitoring the galaxy through automated sensor networks. When certain threat conditions are met, we awaken. President Martinez was quiet for a long moment, processing the incredible information. What happened to the Devourers? Gone, Webb said simply. They consumed everything they could in this galaxy and moved on to the next. But their victory was incomplete. Humanity survived, hidden and forgotten. Over the centuries, your ancestors slowly rebuilt. Not to our former glory, but enough to spread among the stars again. And now new threats have arrived, the president said. Yes, the galaxy remembers what humanity was capable of during our first age. Our rapid expansion over the past few centuries has attracted attention from civilizations that view us as either a future threat to be eliminated or a resource to be exploited. Webb stood and walked to the conference room's windows. Outside, the massive hulk of the Undying Resolve was visible as it moved into position near Mars. The 17 fleets approaching Earth represent the largest coordinated assault on humanity since the Devourers, he continued. Without intervention, your species has perhaps 72 hours before complete extinction. President Martinez joined him at the window. Can you stop them? That's what we were built for, Webb replied. But the cost will be enormous. These ships and their crews were humanity's final insurance policy. Once we reveal ourselves and engage these threats, there will be no going back into hiding. We will have to remain active guardians, which means becoming part of modern human society. The president studied the ancient warship through the transparent aluminum. What do you need from us? Nothing, Webb said, surprising her. The sovereignty operates independently of any human government. We have our own resources, our own technology, our own chains of command. We're not here to take control or demand obedience. We're here to ensure humanity survives. Then, why tell me any of this? Webb smiled sadly. Because after this crisis ends, humanity will need to make some difficult decisions about its future. The galaxy is more dangerous than your people realize. There are threats out there that make the approaching fleets look like minor annoyances. If humanity wants to truly thrive among the stars, you'll need to become stronger. The holographic displays changed again, showing technical specifications for advanced human technology, weapons, ships, and defensive systems that were centuries ahead of current human capabilities. We can share some of our knowledge, Webb offered. Not everything. Some technologies are too dangerous for a civilization that hasn't proven its wisdom. But enough to help humanity defend itself against the threats you'll certainly face in the future. President Martinez studied the specifications with growing amazement. This technology, it could revolutionize everything. Energy, transportation, medicine, space travel. Yes, Webb agreed. But it could also destroy your entire civilization if misused. The same technology that powers our defensive barriers can crack continents. The computers that run our ships could enslave entire populations if they fell into the wrong hands. Power without wisdom is the path to extinction. The president turned to face him directly. What do you suggest? First, we deal with the immediate threats, Webb replied. The approaching fleets will be neutralized within the next week. After that, we establish a formal relationship between the sovereignty and modern humanity. We become your guardians and advisors, but you remain in control of your own destiny. And if we refuse? Webb's expression grew serious. Then, we disappear again. We'll continue to protect humanity from extinction-level threats, but we won't interfere in your development. You'll be on your own against everything else the galaxy throws at you. President Martinez looked out at the ancient ships positioning themselves around Earth. Each vessel represented technology and knowledge that could advance human civilization by centuries. But they also represented the failure of an earlier humanity that had grown too powerful too quickly. I'll need to discuss this with the World Council, she said finally. Of course, Webb replied. But decide quickly. The first enemy fleet will arrive in 60 hours, and we'll need to know whether we're fighting for an ally or simply protecting a genetic legacy. As the president and her delegation prepared to leave, she turned back one final time. Admiral Webb, were there others? Other species that built guardians like yourselves? Webb paused in the doorway, considering his answer. The galaxy is old, President Martinez. Very old. Humanity is not the first civilization to face extinction, and we won't be the last. But we may be the first to actually learn from the experience. After the delegation departed, Webb returned to the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance. His crew was already preparing for the coming battles, running final checks on weapons systems that hadn't been fired in anger for 3 millennia. Orders, sir? Commander Vasquez asked. Webb studied the tactical display showing the approaching enemy fleets. Each one represented a different kind of threat, requiring different strategies and weapons. The next few days would test everything the sovereignty had learned during its long sleep. Signal all ships, he commanded. Begin final battle preparations. And send a message to the outer colonies. Any human vessels still capable of fighting should rendezvous with our fleet. It's time they learn what their species is truly capable of. As klaxons began sounding throughout the ship, Webb allowed himself one last look at Earth. The small blue world had produced the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever seen, then watched it fall to ancient machines. Now it was humanity's second chance, and the sovereignty would make sure they got to keep it. The real war was about to begin. Commander Elena Vasquez watched the tactical displays with professional detachment as the first enemy fleet dropped out of hyperspace. The Krillian swarm had arrived exactly on schedule, their biomechanical ships emerging from jump points like metallic tumors against the stars. Enemy fleet composition confirmed, reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from his intelligence station. 47 capital ships, each approximately 8 kilometers in length. Biosignatures indicate living crews integrated with mechanical systems. They're heading directly for Earth. Vasquez nodded and opened a channel to Admiral Webb, who was in his ready room reviewing final battle plans. Sir, the Krillians have arrived. Should we engage? Webb's voice came back calm and steady. Not yet, Commander. Let them get closer. I want to study their current capabilities before we reveal our full strength. The eternal vigilance hung in space between Earth and the approaching swarm, flanked by her sister ships. The 7 sovereignty vessels looked tiny compared to the massive alien fleet, but Vasquez knew that appearances could be deceiving. Each of their ships carried enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. On the bridge around her, the crew worked with quiet efficiency. These men and women had trained for this moment for decades before entering cryogenic sleep. They had studied every known alien threat, practiced countless battle scenarios, and prepared for war against enemies that might not even exist when they finally awakened. "Ma'am," called out Navigation Officer Kim. "The Krillian fleet is broadcasting on multiple frequencies. It appears to be some kind of ultimatum." "Let's hear it," Vasquez replied. The bridge speakers crackled with an alien voice that sounded like grinding metal mixed with organic breathing. The translation software, advanced far beyond anything modern humanity possessed, quickly converted the sounds into English. "Primitive human civilization," the voice declared. "Your species has been selected for biological integration. Surrender your worlds and submit to conversion. Your organic matter will be preserved and enhanced through merger with our collective consciousness. Resistance will result in total consumption of all planetary biomass." Vasquez felt a chill run down her spine. The Krillians didn't want to simply destroy humanity. They wanted to turn every human being into part of their grotesque collective organism. "Standard swarm tactics," Torres observed from his station. "They'll start by landing on populated worlds and begin converting civilians. Within weeks, every human on the planet becomes part of their fleet." Admiral Webb's voice came over the intercom. "All ships, prepare for engagement. Target their command vessels first. Disrupt their coordination before they can reach Earth." Vasquez moved to the captain's chair and began issuing orders. "Weapons online. Shields to maximum. Navigation, take us to attack position Alpha 7. The eternal vigilance surged forward with impossible grace for such a massive vessel. Her quantum engines allowed acceleration that would turn any normal crew into paste, but the sovereignty personnel had been enhanced to withstand forces that would kill ordinary humans. Behind them, the other 6 ships moved into formation. Each vessel had been designed for a specific role in fleet combat. The Iron Wolf specialized in heavy bombardment, her massive particle cannons capable of cracking moons. The Last Stand was built for defense, her shields strong enough to protect entire fleets. The Sacred Duty carried experimental weapons that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. "Enemy ships are deploying boarding pods," Torres reported. "They're trying to reach the outer colonies first." Vasquez watched the tactical display as hundreds of smaller craft separated from the main Krillian fleet. Each pod carried conversion equipment and swarm drones designed to begin the process of turning humans into hybrid creatures. "Target those pods first," she ordered. "Don't let any reach populated areas." The Eternal Vigilance's point defense systems came online with devastating efficiency. Streams of plasma and particle beams reached out across space, intercepting the boarding pods before they could reach their targets. Each shot was precisely calculated to destroy the pod without creating debris that might threaten nearby colonies. But there were too many pods, and more kept launching from the main fleet. Some of the smaller craft managed to slip through the defensive fire and began their descent toward human settlements. "This is exactly what they want," Vasquez muttered. "They're forcing us to spread our fire while their main fleet advances." Admiral Webb appeared on the bridge, his face grim but determined. "Time to show them what the sovereignty is capable of. All ships, implement Prometheus Protocol." Vasquez felt her heartbeat quicken. The Prometheus Protocol was one of their most devastating weapons packages, designed for use against enemies that threatened humanity's existence. She had hoped they would never need to employ it. "Prometheus Protocol acknowledged," she replied, entering her command codes into the weapons console. Around the fleet, The other sovereignty ships began charging their most powerful weapons. The Undying Resolve's hull opened to reveal massive energy cannons that hummed with barely contained power. The Final Hope deployed arrays of quantum torpedoes that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. All ships report ready for Prometheus, Torres announced. Webb nodded grimly. Execute. What happened next redefined the concept of naval warfare. 7 beams of pure energy lanced out from the Sovereignty fleet, each one targeting a different section of the Krillian formation. The beams didn't just destroy the alien ships, they unmade them at the molecular level, reducing massive biomechanical constructs to their component atoms. In 30 seconds, half the Krillian fleet simply ceased to exist. The surviving alien ships immediately began evasive maneuvers, but their organic components made them slower to react than pure machines would have been. The Sovereignty vessels pressed their advantage, switching to conventional weapons for more precise targeting. Incoming transmission from the Krillian flagship, communications reported. Put it through, Webb ordered. The main screen flickered, revealing a horrifying sight. The Krillian commander was a fusion of organic and mechanical parts, with cables and wires embedded directly into living tissue. Multiple eyes of different sizes studied the human ships with obvious confusion. Impossible, the creature said in its grinding voice. Your technology level does not match our intelligence reports. How do you possess such weapons? Webb stepped forward, his expression cold. Your intelligence is 3,000 years out of date. Humanity has had time to prepare for threats like you. The alien commander's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. We have consumed 47 civilizations. None possess defenses capable of resisting the swarm. What are you? We are what humanity becomes when pushed to the edge of extinction, Webb replied. We are the price of threatening our species. The transmission ended as the Krillian flagship's weapons opened fire on the Eternal Vigilance. Plasma beams and biomechanical projectiles struck the Sovereignty ship's shields, but the ancient barriers held without strain. The Eternal Vigilance responded with a single shot from her main cannon. The beam punched through the flagship's bioarmor and detonated the organic components from within. The massive vessel convulsed like a dying animal before breaking apart. Remaining Krillian ships are retreating, Torres reported. They're broadcasting surrender signals. Negative, Webb said firmly. The swarm doesn't surrender, they regroup. Destroy them all. The order was carried out with clinical precision. Within an hour, the entire Krillian fleet had been reduced to scattered atoms. Not a single alien vessel escaped to report back to their home colonies. But, even as the crew celebrated their victory, new alerts began sounding throughout the ship. Sir, Torres called out, his face pale as he studied his instruments. I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures. More fleets are arriving. The tactical display updated to show 3 more enemy formations dropping out of jump space at different points around the solar system. The Void Hunters emerged as ships made of pure energy, their hulls crackling with electromagnetic fields. The Machine Collective appeared as geometric constructs of impossible complexity, each vessel a perfect fusion of mathematics and technology. Most disturbing were the ships of the Entropy Cult, vessels that seemed to absorb light itself, creating dark wounds in space wherever they appeared. 16 more fleets still approaching, Torres added. ETA ranges from 6 hours to 3 days. Admiral Webb studied the new threats with calculating eyes. Each enemy required different tactics, different weapons, different strategies. The Void Hunters fed on electromagnetic energy, making standard energy weapons potentially useless. The Machine Collective could adapt to any attack pattern given enough time. The Entropy Cult existed partially outside normal reality, making them extremely difficult to target. Signal all ships, he ordered. Prepare for extended combat operations. This is going to be a long fight. As the Sovereignty fleet moved to engage the new threats, Captain Sarah Chun watched from the bridge of the UES Defiance, now stationed in Earth orbit for emergency defense. Her ship had been repaired using advanced Sovereignty technology, giving her a front-row seat to observe the ancient vessels in action. My God, whispered her communications officer. They're not just fighting these aliens, they're systematically destroying them. Shin nodded, watching as the Iron will engage the Void Hunters with weapons that seemed to function on entirely different physical principles. Instead of energy beams, the ancient ship fired what looked like tears in space itself, creating zones of twisted reality that the energy beings couldn't survive in. "Captain," her science officer reported, "I'm analyzing the sovereignty weapons. The technology is unlike anything in our databases. They're not just more advanced, they're operating on completely different scientific principles." Chen understood what he meant. Modern human weapons relied on kinetic energy, explosive force, or directed energy to destroy targets. The sovereignty ships seemed to use reality itself as a weapon, manipulating the fundamental forces of physics in ways that should have been impossible. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "Admiral Webb is requesting a meeting with all surviving human military commanders. He wants us to observe their tactics for future reference." Chen nodded. If humanity was going to survive in a galaxy this dangerous, they would need to learn everything they could from their ancient guardians. As the meeting began via a holographic conference, Chen found herself looking at the faces of the few remaining human naval officers. Most were commanders of small patrol ships or damaged vessels barely holding together. The entire modern human fleet could fit inside a single hangar bay of the Eternal Vigilance. Admiral Webb appeared on the conference display, his uniform showing slight battle damage from the recent engagement. Behind him, Chen could see the organized chaos of a ship preparing for multiple simultaneous battles. "Commanders," Webb began, "what you're witnessing is just the beginning. 17 enemy fleets represent the largest coordinated assault on humanity in recorded history, but they're not the real threat." The display changed to show a galactic map with numerous red zones marked across multiple star systems. Intelligence reports indicate that news of humanity's return to space has spread throughout this region of the galaxy, Webb continued. "We estimate that within 6 months, over 100 different hostile civilizations will be aware of Earth's location." Chen felt her heart sink. "Are you saying this is going to continue?" "I'm saying this is the new normal," Webb replied grimly. "Humanity's expansion into space has made us visible to threats we're not equipped to handle. The sovereignty can protect Earth and the core colonies, but we can't be everywhere at once." The conference participants exchanged worried glances. Chen spoke for all of them when she asked, "What do you need from us?" Webb's expression softened slightly. "Right now, your role is to observe and learn. But, eventually, modern humanity will need to develop its own defenses against these threats. The sovereignty can't sleep between the stars anymore. We'll be active guardians from now on. But we're only 7 ships against a hostile galaxy." As if to emphasize his point, new alerts began sounding on the conference display. More enemy fleets were appearing throughout the solar system, each one bringing different weapons and tactics designed to destroy human civilization. The real war was just beginning, and humanity's survival depended on learning from the Guardians who had sacrificed everything to protect their species. The bridge of the sacred duty trembled as another wave of entropy cult ships phased through normal space-time. Captain Diana Foster gripped her command chair, watching in frustration as her weapons passed harmlessly through the semi-corporeal vessels. "Conventional targeting systems are useless against these things," reported her weapons officer, Lieutenant Commander Park. "They exist partially outside our reality. Every shot just passes right through them." Foster studied the tactical display showing the current battle situation. After 6 days of continuous fighting, the Sovereignty fleet had destroyed 14 of the 17 enemy fleets, but the remaining 3 were proving far more challenging than expected. The Entropy Cult, Machine Collective, and a group calling themselves the Reality Shapers had adapted their tactics based on observations of the earlier battles. "What about the phase disruptors?" she asked. "Charging now, but we only have 3 shots before the system overloads," Park replied. "Admiral Webb wants us to save them for their command ship." Through the view screen, Foster could see the other Sovereignty vessels engaging multiple enemy groups simultaneously. The Eternal Vigilance was locked in combat with the Machine Collective, whose ships kept reconfiguring themselves to counter human weapons. The Iron Will pursued Reality Shaper vessels that could bend space around themselves to avoid incoming fire. Most disturbing was the battle near Jupiter, where the Last Stand was single-handedly holding off a massive entropy cult fleet. The ancient ship's shields were failing under assault from weapons that seemed to drain energy directly from the quantum vacuum. "Ma'am," called out the communications officer. Admiral Webb is requesting immediate assistance at Jupiter. The Last Stand is in serious trouble. Foster made her decision instantly. I'll stop. Redirect all power to the quantum drives. We're going to Jupiter. The Sacred Duty was the smallest of the Sovereignty vessels, but she had been designed for rapid response and experimental weapons deployment. Her quantum drives allowed near-instantaneous travel within a star system, though the energy requirements were enormous. Space twisted around the ship as it entered quantum transit. For a brief moment, Foster experienced the disorienting sensation of existing in multiple locations simultaneously before reality reasserted itself near Jupiter's orbit. The scene that greeted them was chaos. The Last Stand, normally a fortress of impregnable defenses, was surrounded by dozens of entropy cult vessels. Dark energy streams poured from the alien ships, seeking to drain the life from everything they touched. The ancient Sovereignty vessels' shields flickered with increasing frequency as they struggled against attacks that violated the basic laws of physics. "Holy Mother of God," whispered Navigator Singh. "How are we supposed to fight things like that?" Foster studied the enemy ships more carefully. Unlike the biomechanical Krillians or the Geometric Machine Collective, the entropy cult vessels seemed to absorb light itself. They appeared as dark wounds in space, visible only by the way they blocked the light of distant stars. "Run full spectrum analysis on those ships," she ordered. "There has to be something we can target." Chief Science Officer Martinez worked frantically at his station, running sensor sweeps with equipment that could analyze matter down to the subatomic level. "Captain, I'm detecting massive gravitational distortions around each vessel. They're not just absorbing electromagnetic energy, they're feeding on the fundamental forces that hold matter together." Foster felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying they eat reality itself?" "In a sense, yes," Martinez replied. "They exist at the intersection of multiple dimensions, drawing power from the collapse of quantum possibilities into fixed states. Every time something definite happens in their vicinity, they grow stronger." That explained why conventional weapons were useless. Each shot fired at the entropy cult vessels provided them with more energy to consume. The more humanity fought them, the stronger they became. "Captain," the communications officer announced, "incoming transmission from the Last Stand." The face of Captain Michael Torres appeared on the main screen. The veteran officer looked exhausted, his uniform torn and his face covered with blood from a head wound. Behind him, Foster could see damage control teams working desperately to maintain critical systems. "Diana," Torres said grimly, "we can't hold out much longer. These things are draining our power faster than we can generate it. Every shot we fire makes them stronger." Foster nodded. "We see that. What do you need?" "Get Admiral Webb," Torres replied. "There's something he needs to know about these entropy cult bastards. Something that changes everything." Before Foster could respond, new alerts began sounding throughout the Sacred Duty. More enemy ships were emerging from hyperspace, but these weren't reinforcements for the existing fleets. "Captain," Torres reported urgently, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. This is bigger than anything we've faced so far." The tactical display updated to show the newcomers. Foster stared in disbelief at ships that dwarfed even the Sovereignty vessels. Each one was easily 100 kilometers long, their hulls crackling with weapons that registered off the scale of any known technology. "Who the hell are they?" she asked. Martinez ran hasty scans of the new arrivals. "Unknown configuration. Technology appears to be a fusion of multiple alien civilizations. It's like someone combined the best features from dozens of different species." A new voice cut across all communication channels, speaking in perfect English with an accent that was somehow familiar yet utterly alien. "Attention human vessels," the voice announced. "This is the hegemony of transcended civilizations. Your species has been judged guilty of disturbing galactic peace through aggressive expansion. Surrender immediately or face obliteration." Foster exchanged worried glances with her crew. The hegemony ships were positioning themselves throughout the solar system, effectively surrounding all combatants. "Sir," Torres called out from his ship, "these new arrivals, their energy signatures are similar to what we've encountered before, but much more advanced. I think we're looking at representatives from civilizations that have faced extinction and survived by merging with their enemies. The implications were staggering. If Torres was right, the hegemony represented species that had been conquered by threats like the Entropy Cult and Machine Collective, then somehow found ways to incorporate those alien technologies into their own. Admiral Webb's voice cut through the communications chatter. All sovereignty vessels, this is Admiral Webb. Prepare for Emergency Protocol Omega. We are facing a Class 5 extinction threat. Foster had never heard of Protocol Omega, but the tone in Webb's voice suggested it was their last resort. Sacred duty acknowledging. What are your orders? Get to Earth immediately, Webb replied. Evacuate as many civilians as possible. The outer colonies are lost. Foster stared at the tactical display in horror. The hegemony ships were moving with coordinated precision, systematically destroying human outposts and mining stations throughout the solar system. Their weapons didn't just destroy targets. They seemed to erase them from existence entirely. Ma'am, called out the communications officer. I'm receiving emergency signals from colonies throughout the outer system. They're under attack by forces we can't even detect on our sensors. Through the view screen, Foster could see energy discharges in the distance as the Eternal Vigilance engaged multiple hegemony vessels simultaneously. Even Admiral Webb's flagship, the most powerful ship humanity had ever built, was being overwhelmed by enemies that shouldn't exist. Captain Torres, Foster called to the last stand. Can you break free of the Entropy Cult? Negative, came the reply. They've got us trapped in some kind of gravitational field. Every time we try to move, they drain more of our power. Foster made a decision that violated every protocol in the Sovereignty Manual. All hands, prepare for quantum overload. We're going to punch a hole through reality itself. Her crew stared at her in shock. Quantum overload was a theoretical maneuver that could potentially tear apart the fabric of space-time. It had never been tested because the risks were too great. Captain, Martinez protested, the energy release could destabilize the entire system. We could kill everyone we're trying to protect. If we don't do something, the hegemony is going to kill them anyway, Foster replied grimly. At least this way we give humanity a fighting chance. She began entering authorization codes that would remove all safety limitations from the Sacred Duty's quantum core. The ship's computer began issuing warnings about catastrophic system failure, but she ignored them. All power to the quantum drives, she ordered. Target the space between the last stand and the Entropy Cult fleet. We're going to create a quantum rift big enough for them to escape through. The Sacred Duty shuddered as her power systems reached dangerous overload levels. Through the hull, Foster could hear the high-pitched whine of quantum generators being pushed far beyond their design limits. Quantum rift forming, Martinez reported. But, Captain, the power requirements are going to burn out every system on the ship. We'll be completely defenseless. Foster nodded. Sometimes the only way to save lives is to sacrifice your own. Fire when ready. A beam of pure quantum energy lanced out from the Sacred Duty, striking the space between the last stand and her attackers. Reality twisted and buckled under the assault, creating a visible tear in space-time that distorted everything around it. The Entropy Cult ships, caught in the quantum distortion, began to dissolve as their connection to their home dimension was severed. The last stand, freed from the gravitational trap, immediately began moving toward Earth at maximum speed. But the price of the victory was steep. The Sacred Duty's power systems failed completely, leaving the ship drifting helplessly in space as hegemony vessels moved in for the kill. All systems offline, Martinez reported. We're completely dead in the water. Foster watched the approaching enemy ships with resigned calm. The Sacred Duty had served her purpose. The last stand was free, and hopefully Admiral Webb could use the extra firepower to protect Earth's evacuation. But as the hegemony vessels closed in, something unexpected happened. A new ship appeared on their sensors, approaching at impossible speed from the direction of Pluto. Captain, the communications officer announced with excitement. I'm detecting another sovereignty vessel. But it's not one of ours. Foster stared at the sensor readings in confusion. The approaching ship was definitely human in design, but it was larger than any of the 7 sovereignty vessels. Its energy signature suggested technology even more advanced than what they possessed. This is Admiral Rebecca Hayes of the TCS Prometheus, came a transmission from the unknown ship. Sorry we're late to the party. We got your distress signal about 70 years ago, but it took us this long to finish our preparations. Foster felt her jaw drop. The Prometheus was a legend, a ship from the earliest days of the Sovereignty Project that had supposedly been lost during its first mission. Admiral Hayes, she managed to say, where have you been? Hayes' image appeared on the view screen, showing a woman who looked to be in her 30s despite being older than any of them. Her uniform was different from standard Sovereignty issue, incorporating design elements that looked almost alien. Learning, Hayes replied with a grim smile. We've spent the last 3,000 years studying every threat the galaxy has to offer. And now we're back to share what we've learned. The Prometheus moved past the disabled sacred duty and engaged the hegemony fleet with weapons that defied every law of physics Foster knew. The massive enemy ships, which had been systematically destroying human civilization, began to retreat in apparent panic. Admiral Webb, Hayes transmitted to the fleet commander, we need to talk. What's happening here is just the beginning. The real threat is still coming. As Foster watched the Prometheus single-handedly drive off enemies that had overwhelmed the entire Sovereignty fleet, she realized that humanity's ancient guardians held secrets far deeper than anyone had imagined. The war for humanity's survival was about to enter an entirely new phase. Admiral Marcus Webb stood in the conference room aboard the Eternal Vigilance, staring across the table at a woman who should have been dead for 3 millennia. Admiral Rebecca Hayes looked exactly as she had the day the Prometheus had vanished during humanity's darkest hour. Yet there was something different about her, an otherworldly quality that made Webb's skin crawl. You want to explain where you've been, Rebecca? Webb asked, his voice carefully controlled. Hayes smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We've been doing exactly what we were tasked to do, Marcus. Protecting humanity from extinction. The difference is, we realized that hiding and waiting wasn't enough. We needed to become something more. Around the conference table sat the surviving captains of the Sovereignty fleet. Captain Foster from the Sacred Duty, her ship still undergoing repairs after the Quantum Rift incident. Captain Torres from the Last Stand, bearing scars from the Entropy cult battle. The others showed similar signs of the brutal week-long campaign against 17 different alien civilizations. Through the massive windows of the conference room, they could see the Prometheus hanging in space nearby. The ancient ship was even larger than Webb remembered, and its hull showed modifications that followed no human design philosophy. Geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly decorated the armor plating, and weapon systems extended from the superstructure like metallic growths. The hegemony fleet retreated the moment you arrived, Torres observed. Ships that were systematically destroying our most advanced weapons suddenly ran like frightened children. What kind of technology are you carrying? Hayes activated a holographic projector, filling the space above the conference table with images that made several officers gasp. The displays showed vast structures in the deep spaces between galaxies, constructs that dwarfed entire star systems. 3,000 years ago, when the Prometheus left on our mission, we thought we were going to scout for remaining Devourer forces, Hayes explained. What we found instead was something far worse. The Devourers weren't just a single machine intelligence that had consumed hundreds of galaxies. They were one small part of something much larger. The holographic images changed, showing a map of local galactic clusters. Red zones indicated areas where all stellar activity had ceased, entire regions of space that were simply empty. Meet the Harvester Collective, Hayes continued. A meta-civilization that spans multiple galaxies and exists solely to consume every form of matter and energy in the universe. The Devourers were their advanced scouts, sent to identify which galaxies contained useful resources. Webb felt his blood run cold. Are you saying the threats we've been fighting are connected to this collective? Directly, Hayes confirmed. The 17 fleets that attacked Earth, the hegemony ships, even the Entropy cult, they're all either collective forces or civilizations that have been conquered and converted. The galaxy is being prepared for harvest. Captain Foster leaned forward in her chair. How long do we have? Hayes manipulated the holographic controls, and the display zoomed in to show the local galactic arm. A massive red zone was slowly expanding from the galactic core, consuming everything in its path. The main harvester force will reach this sector in approximately 50 years, Hayes replied. When they arrive, Everything within 1,000 light-years of Earth will be converted into raw materials for their ever-expanding fleet. The conference room fell silent as the officers absorbed this information. Webb had spent 3,000 years preparing for threats to humanity, but nothing had prepared him for the possibility that the entire galaxy was doomed. "What did you learn during your mission?" he asked quietly. Hayes stood up and walked to the windows, looking out at the stars. "We learned that conventional resistance is futile. The collective has consumed civilizations far more advanced than humanity, species that had millions of years to develop weapons and defenses. Nothing stops them through direct confrontation." "Then, why did the hegemony fleet retreat?" Torres demanded. Hayes turned back to face them, and for a moment her eyes seemed to reflect light like an animal's. "Because the Prometheus carries weapons that function on the same principles as collective technology. We've spent 3,000 years studying captured harvester equipment, learning how to fight fire with fire." Webb noticed that she hadn't actually answered the question. "Rebecca, what happened to your crew?" A shadow passed across Hayes' face. "They volunteered for the same modifications I underwent. The human body and mind have limitations that prevent us from effectively using collective technology. Those limitations had to be overcome." The implications of her words sent a chill through the room. Webb stood up slowly, his hand moving instinctively toward his sidearm. "What kind of modifications?" Hayes smiled again, and this time Webb could see that her teeth were slightly pointed. "Nothing that changed who we are fundamentally. We're still human, Marcus. We're just enhanced, improved, made capable of fighting threats that would destroy ordinary humans." Before anyone could respond, alerts began sounding throughout the eternal vigilance. The conference room's displays activated automatically, showing sensor readings from throughout the solar system. "Sir," came the voice of Commander Vasquez over the intercom, "we're detecting massive hyperspace signatures. Multiple fleets are approaching from all vectors." Webb looked at the tactical display and felt his heart sink. Hundreds of red contacts were appearing at the edge of the solar system, representing more alien vessels than he had ever seen in one place. "The collective's response force," Hayes observed calmly. "They don't like it when their converted species retreat without authorization." Through the conference room windows, Webb could see the other sovereignty vessels moving into defensive positions around Earth. But their 7 ships, powerful as they were, couldn't possibly stand against the armada now approaching. "How do we fight this?" Webb asked. Hayes walked back to the holographic projector and entered a series of commands that Webb didn't recognize. The display changed to show detailed schematics of the Prometheus's weapon systems. "We don't fight them," she replied. "We transcend them." The schematics showed technology that was clearly based on human engineering principles, but incorporated elements that looked disturbingly organic. Weapon systems that grew rather than being manufactured. Power sources that pulsed like living hearts. "The collective's greatest weakness is their reliance on pure logic and efficiency," Hayes explained. "They can't understand or counter weapons that incorporate chaos, creativity, and controlled madness. Human irrationality is the one thing in the universe they can't predict or adapt to." Captain Foster studied the weapon schematics with growing unease. "These designs, they're not entirely human, are they?" "They're what humanity needs to become if we want to survive," Hayes replied. "The age of purely organic humans is ending, Marcus. We can either evolve or become extinct." Webb looked around the conference room at his officers. These men and women had sacrificed everything to protect humanity's future. Now they were being told that humanity itself needed to fundamentally change in order to survive. "What are you proposing?" he asked. Hayes manipulated the holographic display again, showing technical specifications for modifications that could be applied to the existing sovereignty fleet. "Upgrade your ships with collective-derived technology," she said. "Allow your crews to undergo enhancement procedures that will let them interface directly with the new systems. Become something that the harvesters can't comprehend or defeat." "And if we refuse?" Torres asked. Hayes gestured toward the tactical display, showing the approaching enemy fleets. "Then, humanity dies in approximately 6 hours when the collective forces reach Earth." Webb stared at the weapon specifications, trying to understand technology that seemed to blur the line between machine and organism. The power levels were incredible, far beyond anything the sovereignty had ever achieved. But the cost was equally staggering. These modifications, he said slowly, they're permanent, aren't they? Yes, Hayes admitted. There's no going back once the integration process begins. But, Marcus, look around you. Look at what we're facing. This isn't about preserving human purity anymore. This is about preserving human existence. Through the view screen, Webb could see the lead elements of the collective fleet entering the outer solar system. Ships that defied classification moved with purpose toward Earth, their weapons already charging for what would likely be the final battle in human history. How long do we have to decide, he asked. 20 minutes, Hayes replied. After that, the enemy will be close enough to prevent any modifications to your ships. Webb looked around the table at his officers. These people had followed him through impossible battles, trusted his judgment even when facing extinction. Now he was asking them to give up their humanity itself for the chance to protect their species. Sir, Captain Foster said quietly, if this is what it takes to save Earth. I'm in, Torres added grimly. My crew has already sacrificed everything for humanity. This is just one more sacrifice. One by one, the other captains voiced their agreement. They had all sworn oaths to protect humanity, and if that meant becoming something inhuman themselves, they would pay that price. Webb closed his eyes and thought about the billions of people on Earth who were depending on them. Children who deserved the chance to grow up. Scientists who might unlock the secrets of the universe. Artists who could create beauty that transcended species barriers. Do it, he said finally. Begin the modifications. Hayes nodded and activated a communication device that looked more grown than built. Prometheus, to all sovereignty vessels. Begin integration protocol. Transmitting upgrade specifications now. Webb felt the deck plates beneath his feet begin to vibrate as the Eternal Vigilance's systems started to change. Throughout the ship, crew members were reporting to modification stations where they would undergo procedures that would alter them at the genetic level. Marcus, Hayes said softly, I want you to know that we're still human. We're still the same people who swore to protect our species. We've just become capable of fighting monsters. Webb nodded, though he wondered if there was really a difference between becoming a monster and fighting one. As the first wave of modifications began to take effect, he felt his consciousness expanding to encompass systems and capabilities that no human mind should be able to process. Outside, the collective fleet continued its approach, unaware that humanity was about to become something they had never encountered before. The final battle for human survival was about to begin, fought by beings who were no longer entirely human but remained utterly dedicated to protecting the species they had once been. In the end, Webb thought as his enhanced senses detected the enemy fleet's weapons charging, survival mattered more than purity. Humanity would endure, even if it had to become something unrecognizable to do so. The ancient warships had awakened not just to defend humanity, but to transform it into something capable of surviving in a universe that offered no mercy to the weak or unchanged. The final battle would determine not just whether humans lived or died, but what they would become in order to ensure their species' continuation among the stars.